As one of the greatest rock and roll bands of all time, Led Zeppelin's history has been well documented. You might think you know everything about the 70s rock gods, but there's still a couple of things out there that will surprise you. What is and what should never be. It's hard to imagine Led Zeppelin being fronted by anyone other than Robert Plant, but had Jimmy Page's first choice for Led Zeppelin's lead singer worked out, the history of rock music would be drastically different. Singer Terry Super Lungs Reid was one of Page's first choices to front his band, which was then called the New Yardbirds, but Reid had already signed with high-profile producer Mickey Most. The sweet-voiced rock prodigy had to turn down Page's offer, but suggested the guitarist take a look at Robert Plant, who he described as a Greek god. Page obviously liked what he saw in Plant, who brought along his buddy John Bonham to play the drums, and the rest is rock and roll history. Reid's career certainly wasn't a failure, but turning down Page's offer to front Led Zeppelin was the biggest mistake of anyone's career, ever. Reid wasn't the only one to be offered the gig. Page also considered Steve Marriott, singer for British rock band The Small Faces. So why didn't it happen? Marriott's manager was Don Arden, Sharon Osbourne's terrifying father, and a guy who called himself the Al Capone of pop.
Don Arden, dun dun dun.
Page received a message from Arden saying, "How would you like to play guitar with broken fingers?" The violent rejection took the wind out of Page's sails. Everybody went back to their respective bands, and no fingers were broken. The Nobs. Led Zeppelin and the New Yardbirds weren't the only names that Zep have used on stage. Once the band played a show in Copenhagen as the Nobs. Why the name change? The name was Led Zeppelin's response to Eva von Zeppelin, the granddaughter of Ferdinand von Zeppelin, founder of the Zeppelin Airship Company, who had threatened legal action if they ever performed as Led Zeppelin in Denmark. In response, Page decided the band would change its name to the Nobs for its show in Copenhagen, calling the whole ordeal absurd. The group even tried to pacify the outraged noblewoman in person. Page recalled, "The first time we played, we invited her backstage to meet us, to see how we were nice young lads. We calmed her down, but on leaving the studio, she saw our LP cover of an airship in flames and she exploded. I had to run and hide. She just blew her top." Oh, the humanity. Good times, bad times. Led Zeppelin wasn't always the well-loved band it is today. Early on, some very influential critics saw the future rock icons as nothing but loud, unoriginal, overtly sexual, bombastic blowhards. In particular, Rolling Stone absolutely despised them, calling their debut album weak and unimaginative, saying that Robert Plant's vocals were prissy, and concluding that Led Zeppelin wasn't nearly as good as Cream, which had just broken up. Criticism got so bad that Zep intentionally named the fourth album nothing at all, provided no band info, no photos of the group, and gave no interviews to promote it. They also made one of the greatest albums of all time, which probably helped ward off the critics for good. Jimmy Page wanted to cure cancer. Jimmy Page always exhibited a God-given talent on the sixth string, but playing guitar in the world's greatest rock and roll band wasn't his original goal. In April 1958, a 14-year-old Page appeared on BBC's television show All Your Own, where the prodigy demonstrated his guitar prowess in a group of skiffle musicians. After the performance, the host asked Page about his future aspirations.
Can you move on? What are you going to do when you leave school? Take up skiffle?
No, I want to do biological research.
In an interview with ITV 5 years later, a 19-year-old Page spoke of different professional goals, telling the interviewer he hoped to become an accomplished artist, which seems to have worked out. Houses of the Unholy. While not a master of the actual dark arts, Jimmy Page was certainly interested in them, enough to buy what some might call the most evil house in Great Britain. That would be Aleister Crowley's Boleskine house, which the occultist magician bought in 1899. Page bought the house in the 1970s, and though he never really lived there, he visited enough to be permanently tied to it in the public eye, being filmed in and around the house with glowing red eyes in the Zeppelin concert film The Song Remains the Same. Legend maintains that Crowley was called away in the middle of a ritual that had summoned demons to the residence, and he just never cleaned the place up. The person who actually lived there, Page's childhood friend Malcolm Dent, stayed there for 20 years before Page sold the place. As he told the Inverness Courier in a 2006 interview, doors would be slamming all night. You'd go into a room and carpets and rugs would be piled up. Even though he's a self-described skeptic, Dent couldn't explain why any of this was happening. Still, it's kind of surprising he never called anyone about it.
We're ready to believe you.
Thanks for watching. Click the grunge icon to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Plus check out all this cool stuff we know you'll love too.